Hey, 8th grade math. Mr. Catlin here with your cool down for today. We're in lesson 2 of unit 3, and we're looking at these graphs of proportional relationships. This cool down needs you to pick the one of these graphs that's different than the other 3 and give an explanation of how you know. So to be able to do this, since they're all scaled differently, like this one's scaled by 2s and by 2/10, and these are scaled by 2s and by 10s. This one's by 10s and by 2s. This one's by 20s and by 20s. They're all scaled differently, so you can't visually tell that some of them are the same. So you have to actually look at their constant of proportionality. And remembering what we did in class today, you should be able to find a constant of proportionality very simply. You just take the y value and you divide it by the x value. If you were making a table for this, for example, for A, you would have x being 0.8, because that's where the x value is for the dot, and you would have y being 4. All right? So when you set that up in the constant of proportionality ratio, you would have 4 over 0.8. Which when you divide those, you find your constant of proportionality. If we find the constant of proportionality for all of these, we should be able to compare and then look at the comparisons to explain how we know which one's different. So let's do the first one. We already got it set up here. There's a trick for this first one. This is A, by the way. Whenever you have a fraction like this, if you don't want to go into the division or you don't have a calculator, I multiply them both by 10 to get rid of the decimal. That would move this over, and multiplying 4 times 10 would give me 40. And that just comes out to be 40 divided by 8, which is 5, or 5 over 1. So we know that this one has a constant or an equation of y equals 5x. So that's the equation for this line. If we can prove that others are not y equals 5x, we know that's the different one. So we keep going until we find a different equation. Let's do B in this blue color. Okay. So when I set up y over x for B, my setup is going to be my y, which is 55. So 55 over 10, which when I simplify this, 5 goes into that 11 times, and 5 goes into that twice, and 11 cut in half is 5.5. So my equation there is y equals 5.5x. So really close to y equals 5x, but slightly different. And the slope looks a lot different, but slightly different. All right, let's move on to a different one. Let's do C. Let's do C in green. Okay, so we set up the constant of proportionality and we divide our y term by our x term here. We get our y term of 20 and we get our x term of 4. And that divides out to give me 5 to 1. So that's another y equals 5x. This is looking like B is the one that doesn't belong. Well, let's just double check with D and see if that's what's going to happen. I'll do this one in purple. It looks like my y value for D, my y over x, it appears to be, that's 40. So that's 60. That's halfway between them. So that would be 50. So this is 50. And we're dividing that by our x value, which is halfway between 0 and 20, which would make that 10. Oh, that's just going to knock out my zeros, and we get 5 again. So this is y equals 5x. This one's y equals 5x. They're all y equals 5x except B, which turned out to be y equals 5.5x. So we're going to say that which of these relationships is different? We're going to say B is different because, and I'm not going to write it, I'm just going to say it. You can add this to your shown work and your explanation. Your explanation should say B is different because its constant of proportionality is 5.5, while the others are all 5, or something along those lines. You could say B is different because its constant is different than all of the others. It has a different constant of proportionality. It has a different slope. You could even say that because rise over run works for this as well. But that's, and you'll notice y over x, that's rise over run. That's the change in rise and the change over run. So it's all connecting to what we're doing from last unit too. But that's why B is the one that you need to select for this particular one. Y'all have a good one. See you later.